to take a peek at our calendar real quick here and look where we're at. So today is the 13th of September. So we are planning on starting learning plan number 4. And this evening at 11:59, your learning plan 3 drawings and any extra credits you wanted to do are out there. So don't jump to the extra credit until you've done the actual drawings, because those have to be in place first. Remember, extra is extra, and that'll be added at the very end. So you won't really see that helping you out until the end of the semester, and then we'll add those all in and you can kind of see where you're at that point. So there are always extra points that are out there. Okay, so we're going to be looking at learning plan number 4. So let's take a peek over there. We're going to be transitioning over into Revolves. So Revolve is learning plan number 4, but it's chapter 5 in our book. Okay, chapter 5 in our book. Now, I don't have any PowerPoints or handouts right now, so we're just going to kind of go through and do a demo, if you would, or kind of work through the beginning here. And I'll get you started on the tutorial that you're going to do, as well as then you're going to do another one independently before we start the homework. And that's really what I'm going to set you free on today. So let's open up Creo and open up to page 115 in our book. So I'm going to get my session going here. And I'm also going to look underneath and get my camera out, because we'll be going back and forth underneath my document camera as well. And let things get going here. Was not closed. I'm gonna continue anyway. Get rid of this. And I'm going to get rid of that other guy too. We don't need that hanging out there. 2 sessions open? I might. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say, yes, get rid of that. Do you want to exit? Yes. Okay, so we're going to start a new session here. And I'm going to start by looking at setting up my working directories. So my working directory, as we know, we're going to go wherever yours is. I just have mine on my desktop, Creo 1.0, and I'm going to just set that up for right now. Now, as we look in our book here, and we're going to be exploring Revolves. Revolves, and most of you have had SolidWorks before as well. Revolves are going to be items that we maybe see an axis of symmetry for which we can take a cross section and revolve it around. So most often it's going to be circular features that have the same cross section all the way through. Now, I really like an example that they show us on page, I'm sorry, did I not hit record? I thought I did. Did I lose you guys? No, I think I'm recording. I've got the green around here, so I think I'm okay.
You are recording, Kelly.
I am recording. Okay, do you know that? Okay, all right. Thank you for confirming that, John. Okay, thank you. But no, it's okay. I would much rather we check and be sure than if all of a sudden we get all the way through and I'm not. So I'm glad you're checking for me. Now, what I want to call your attention to is you don't always have to do a revolve, and there are other ways of doing it. You can extrude some of these things. So I'm gonna kind of show us this. We did some similar parts to these round parts here in the extrusion unit, okay? And they're perfectly fine to do them that way, except it's gonna take a little bit longer to do them. And so Revolve becomes really a convenient way of creating these cross sections that when we look at this axis of symmetry, that it's the same on both sides and it just revolves, if you would, around that center line. So they show you a process over on page 119 for which you could build this through an extrusion. And they compare then the process to, but if I would just do that cross section and revolve it, it's like done in one command as opposed to a couple different extrudes. So one isn't necessarily better than the other. One just is more efficient in creating the geometry than the other, okay? So whether you recognize these axes of symmetry and the opportunity to revolve, or if you build them through extrusions, the end result is really the same. The time to get there is probably going to be a little bit longer if you do the extrusion most often, okay? So they kind of contrast those two, saying that, yeah, you could do it that way, but you don't have to, okay? So that's what this chapter is all about. Now, As we look at the cross section here, this is a perfect example of a revolve where we're going to look at that axis of symmetry. Okay, we're going to draw, we're going to sketch out its profile, if you would, and then we're going to revolve it around that axis kind of in and out of the page here. And we're going to create it through that sketching method that we've been looking at up until this point. One of the things that is different about the revolve is that the center line we actually have to set up as what we call a datum, okay? So that it actually is the axis that you revolve around. We can't use the Sketcher center line. We actually have to use the datum center line to do these. Otherwise, it won't recognize that it's going to be going around that axis, and then it kind of warns us before we try to revolve, okay? So we'll show you where that is. And so I'm actually gonna jump into, there's a little bit of information here in the beginning. So if you want to read through that, go ahead. They also talk about a couple different ways that we can actually place holes. And some of them we've already experienced, and Giselle introduced us to the holes that we can counterbore and such. But one that you're gonna practice in this first tutorial is going to be a sketched hole. And that's gonna be a hole that isn't standard, isn't like straight through. Maybe it's a taper or something like that, and that's the type of hole that we're going to be putting in as a sketched hole. So we'll look at that process. So it becomes a little bit more versatile than just the standard drill through or counter bore or threaded holes like we're used to. Okay. So let's get some revolve practice. This tutorial actually starts on page 122, and we're going to be using and looking at this step shaft that is going to have a retaining ring on the corner of it, or a retaining ring groove, but then we're also going to be putting a taper hole on one end of it. Okay, so that's the process we're going to go through. So I'm going to start here and kind of get everything set in our environment. We already set our working directory, so I'm going to start new here, a new part. Now they want us to call this, I don't know, step shaft. So I'm just going to call it step shaft. I'm going to say okay. And now we come up with our familiar placement where we want to start doing things. So they have us, we got our part, we've got that. They also want us to look up in our file, options, entity display, and they want us to show the datum display settings. Now, the datum display names, is that what, or the tags, I think it's called, the tags. I already have mine on because I've been practicing this. So show datum plain tags. Okay, this is kind of nice because it offers, and although it takes up a little bit more space on here, when we look at the datums now, we can see which one is the front, the right, and the top. You can turn these off as to just not clutter up the drawing, but sometimes in the beginning it's kind of nice. So it's a way that you can see that you can toggle those on and off. If you don't have them there, as you know, when you just go on one of them, it gives you the flyout or the little flag there that tells you which one it is. So they just have you setting that up in the beginning there. So if you want to put them there or not, totally up to you. Okay. So now we're going to jump in and we're going to start. Oh, also they want us to do one more thing. Set up our model properties here and look at the units. So we're going to go into File, and it's going to be Prepare, and we want to go into Model Properties. And then we are going to find where our, I think it's the units, we want to change those. And we want it to be in inch, pound, seconds, IPS, okay, just below what that default was. Let me get this guy out of here, and I'm going to go, I have to hit Set, and then I'm going to say, do I want to convert those? Sure, we can set OK. And then I can close this, get this guy out of here. Okay, and then I can hit close here. All right, so that's the units they want us in, really similar to what we had before on the default, but it's just another way to kind of introduce you to how you can change those for future. So we close, and now we're going to scooch right into Revolve because we know that we're going to be revolving this cross section. If you wanted to sketch it out first and then highlight it and go into Revolve, you can. But the suggested method is to go right into Revolve if you know that's what you're going to do, just like we did for Extrude before. So we're going to go into Revolve, and they want us to find our placement, and we want to define what is the plane that we're going to be on. We're going to stick this time still in the front view with the right on the right-hand side there, and then we're gonna get into sketch. Okay, so that takes us all the way to the top of page 126. Page 126. And now we're going to, on the top of page 127, we are going to draw the profile that we see here. Okay, this profile right here. Now I'm not going to lie, I tried and tried and tried to do their modify command, and I just couldn't get it to work. So I'm gonna kind of improvise. I'm gonna pull myself in it really close, because otherwise we get in those really large dimensions, and then you have to like kind of scale everything down systematically. I'm gonna try to do it the way that they're telling us to, but I backed in and out, and I could not get mine to work. At least at home I couldn't, and it was very frustrating. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show you where this center line is that we have to use for revolves. It's the center line on the left-hand side here above the datum area, okay? So we're gonna use this center line. Don't use the center line in the sketch area, okay? Use the datum center line. So we're gonna hit that, and we're gonna make a horizontal center line first, okay? And then I'm gonna middle click, and it just creates that for us, okay? Now I'm gonna start sketching this profile. So I'm just gonna jump right into the line, and I wanna do it exactly the way they want us to start. So we need to start on the left-hand side over here. I'm gonna go up, I'm gonna go over, and then I use that right plane as that difference between these two areas. Now, let me see. No, I try to not allow it to do those like equal signs and stuff. And then we have to close it. Okay, and then middle mouse button. There we go. Okay, this isn't too bad, but it's still larger than what I want. So I'm just going to move some of these dimensions away so that I can see them, so I can click on them when I need to. And I'm going to put this one over here and this one up here. Okay, so the way they have you do it in the book, and I have my laptop, and this is what I use at home as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. Also select everything. And it says that the dimensions should go to red. Mine don't. Mine stay green. So I'm not sure if that's part of it. But then I'm going to click on modify. And what comes up here is going to be all of our options for the different dimensions that I have. And the one that's active right now is this one over here. It's the first dimension, if you would, SD0, they're calling it. And I want to change that to 1 inch. Right now, mine is 6.7. Now, Josh, you had asked about this. It's like, I wish I could do this, and this is supposed to do this for us, okay? So I hope it works for you, and I hope it works now, but we'll see. And what I want to do is I want to lock the scale. If I lock the scale, the intent is that however small I make this, the rest of my dimensions are going to do the same. Okay, they're all going to like squish down, so I don't have to do them all individually. So we'll see if this works. Okay, so I'm going to select this. Let's see. Off of it. I'm going to select this. I'm going to delete that number, and I'm going to put this to 1 inch. I'm going to hit OK. Of course it works now. Good. If it works now, I am super duper happy. And it did. It did. So let me scooch these closer. Okay. And then I went round and round with this over the weekend, and I was very frustrated. I'm like, no, not again. We're not gonna have these troubles. So, but maybe it's my internet. Maybe it's my internet. I know when I'm at home, I have to like do something a little special to get to the license. So I don't know if that's the part that is the problem. All right, now all my dimensions are not proportional yet, but they're at least nicer to work with, right? They're not big. So use that modify. Evidently it works good now. I was just setting myself up as a warning. So I'm gonna march around. Now, the other thing that you'll notice from the dimensions that are on here is that they're not dimensioning to the bottom of that profile. They're dimensioning like it's going to be a diameter. And that's because we're using the datum center line, not the sketch center line. If you find that your dimensions are going to this plane, then you probably picked the wrong center line. Okay, not a big deal. You just select it and redefine it. It's totally fine. Okay, so I'm going to march around here, and I'm going to fix up my dimensions. I think I need 3 here. I need to have the dimension from here to here, up there, and that needs to be 2. And then my overall is 7.5. All right. Oh, this guy went over here. We need that to be 1.75. And then this one, 1.5. That's okay. Oh, that one's in there. Good. Okay. 3, I don't know. Am I good? What else do I need here? What am I missing? 1.75, 1.25, enter. 1, 3. I think I'm all black. So let me look here. I'm going to do a feature requirements. Oh, I've got all check marks, so I'm good to go. So I'm going to hit OK. All right. Now remember, we came into Sketch through Revolve. So what should happen, yep, we come back to our Revolve here, and then it has internal CL. That's what it's going to rotate around, which was that datum center line that we set up originally. If this is not here, then we didn't do it correctly. Okay, and you'll also get like a little warning, you know, before you go out there. All right, so this looks pretty darn good. If I want to use the sunglasses or the glasses and kind of look to see how awesome it looks great, and I can hit the OK. So I've created now a solid piece because I was attached to the center line. If I wasn't attached to the center line, then I would have a hole going through the whole thing. So, so just be aware of that. Good, moving right along here. Now, the other thing it's good to familiarize ourselves with is, if you haven't kind of done this already, on page 130, and I played around with this too, and discovered maybe a couple of things we hadn't really formally gone over yet, but this gives us the options that we have with our mouse, okay? Now, the darkened in portion there is looking at pressing down the middle mouse button. So if I want to spin it just like normal, middle mouse button, I can kind of move my model around. If I want to pan it, I hit shift and that middle mouse button. So if you've discovered some of these things already, great. So middle mouse button, I can kind of move it around wherever I need it to go. If I want to pan it up, down, left, right, I just hit shift, middle mouse button, and now I can pan it where it needs to go. Okay, sometimes that comes in handy. Zooming is control, and then I can go up and I can go down rather than using the roller like that. Okay, and then to turn, like from where you're at, I can hit control, and then it goes around the position of my mouse. And then on the other side, using the zoom with the roller by hitting either shift or control to kind of either coarse or fine tune that zoom. Okay, so I'll let you play around there if you so choose. The other things in the steps on page 131, they have us work through looking at all of these options again. We had done this once before and earlier, I think it was the extrusion one, where we worked through what each one of these, you know, does for us. So wireframe, hidden lines, that kind of thing. They want us to stick to hidden line. So I'm going to do hidden line mode so that it looks like that. Okay. And there are some good reasons to do that. Okay. Especially when we're trying to pick areas, and then we don't have to do like printing of the model and stuff like that. So we will go here, and then they also want us to, at this point, save. Okay, so I'm going to just hit save, and it's going back to my working directory. So I'm just going to hit OK. All right. So now really where we're at is on page, or I'm on step 39 on page 131. Okay, and we are going to, it says it wants us to select Revolve 1, and it wants us to edit the dimensions. Oh, it wants us to add a chamfer. Oh, it wants us to just put the dimensions on. At this point, what you could do is you could add the dimensions. So I'm going to click on there. I'm going to add the dimensions, and then they're wanting you to take a screenshot and print it out. You don't have to do that. But if you wanted to, you could. If you wanted to print something off and kind of show it to me, or for whatever reason you would want to, you can do that. So it's just putting those dimensions back on while you're in that pictorial view. Now, we're going to go out of that, but we're going to add chamfers, okay? So we've used this before. We can do it here. And so in this case, our chamfers are 45 degrees by 0.06. So the DD makes a 45-degree angle. Or as you know, you can go down here and you can add an angle and a D. So either way, when there's a 45-degree angle, D and D, or the 45 and the distance is fine. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to pick the edges. Pick the edges, not the surfaces, where I want that chamfer to be. So I want it to be on the edge here. I want it to be on the outside edge there, here. And even though it's only selecting half of it, it'll go around the whole thing. And that one. Okay. So that's where I want my chamfers to be. So if I feel good about that, I can hit OK, or I can hit the middle mouse button and it'll accept it. The next one that I want to do is going to be the rounds. I'm going to do fillets on the inner radiuses, and these are also a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to leave it in there at 0.016. And now this is where having the wireframe or the hidden lines shown rather than the whole model comes in handy. On this side, I can pick that inner one, but now I don't have to turn the model and I can actually pick this one over here. Okay, so that looks good. If I wanted to, then I could change my view and I could say, oh, let me just double check that. I want shading without, and sure enough, it looks like it's rounded on those corners and I've got the chamfers, so I'm good to go. Okay. Now I'm going to continue back in my hidden line mode, okay, to kind of just follow along with what the book is doing. I'm going to just do a save really quickly. Again, it takes 0 time to do that. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to position myself, and I'm going to do another revolve. We're going to put that retaining ring groove in. Okay, I'm going to do the revolve. And I need to do my placement. Okay, I need to like pick the sketching plane that I'm going to be on, and I want to hit define here. Now, this one is a little bit different because what we're going to do is we're going to pick first the front plane. I don't want the top plane. I want the front plane. So, and that's why the names kind of come in handy here, even though you can float over them. I want the front plane. I'm going to say sketch. But now I want to be on this surface, and I want to be 2 inches away from this surface. So I'm in this view sketching, but I want to add a reference, okay? So if I go up here to the left-hand side all the way over, you'll see that the middle one, you know, when we look at these 3 from the top under setup, is reference. So I'm going to specify references to dimension, okay? And I am going to click the vertical surface right here, because that's where I'm going to get my dimension from, and the top of that diameter, those 2, okay? And I'm going to hit close. All right, so now I can reference those 2 surfaces that I just selected. I'm going to go in and I'm going to create the rectangle that we see on page 133 at the bottom. So I'm going to select and I'm going to create a center line. I have to have the center line in here again. Now, if you forget it, it'll remind you before you want to revolve. It'll say, I don't have a center line to revolve around. So I'm going to put it in here right away because this is a new, even though I had identified it for my first revolve, this is a new revolve. So we have to identify that center line again. So there's my center line in place. And now I'm going to just draw the profile of my retaining ring groove. Now I don't want it to be the equal business, okay? So try to either elongate it or go past it and then back up and then close it, something I forgot last week, okay? And it's gonna then automatically do some dimensions there for us, okay? So this one we definitely want, so we're gonna change that to 2 inches as the dimensions show us. Now this is much larger. I want this to be 0.06. And then I want the depth. Now, in this case, they did a reference dimension from the opposite side of that diameter, but I want this to actually be from the top to the bottom of my groove. And I'm going to go out here with this. And this is going to be 0.04. Okay. All right. So now it looks like I'm good here. So I'm going to do feature requirements. I've got all of these. So again, if you did not have that center line down for this one, if you just started drawing, there would be like a little like triangle here. And all you'd have to do is go back and put that datum center line in and you would be good to go. So I am good to go. And it looks like it's removing material already. If it doesn't on yours, just make sure that you do that. And what I like to do is get this back to my shading with edges, because then I can definitively see it. It's a little bit easier to see it this way. And if I feel like that looks good, it's going around 360 degrees. I have an internal center line as a solid. I'm going to hit OK. And there's my retaining ring groove. OK, cool, 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 cool. All right, I'm going to do another file save. Now, if I just do file save because I've done it before, I don't have to do any of the other stuff there. It's saving it for me automatically. All right. Around that. Okay, now the next one is where we want to look at putting in a hole. And we're going to use the hole command, but we're going to use this sketched hole option. And again, sketched hole is when we have an internal feature like a hole that is something other than like the simple or straight through types of things, whether it's a counter bore, a through hole, a threaded hole, that kind of thing. So it's something other than that. We need to sketch that profile. That's what we're going to do here. So we want to put a tapered hole into this edge right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that hole command, okay? And we're going to say we want to do a sketched hole, okay? Sketched, and then we're going to go right into Sketcher, a new sketch, okay? And we're going to start by creating a vertical geometry center line. So we want to do the center line here because we're also going to do a revolve for that. So center line, we're going to do it vertical and little mouse button. And then now we're going to sketch the profile of our hole. So on the top of page 136 up here, this is the profile that we want to do. Okay, so we're going to do this half right here and close it. Okay, so I'm going to take faith that modify function is working well. So I'm going to draw it just like it is here and not zoom in. So I'm going to do line over, cross your fingers for me, here, here, and here. Okay. All right. Yeah. So it's like 6 inches, 3 inches at the bottom. That's not going to be helpful for me. So I am going to move this guy up here a little bit, and I'm going to start kind of playing with my dimensions. So I know that this needs to be 12 degrees. I know that my top needs to be 0.375. Actually, no, wait on that. I'm going to use this modify. Let's see if we can get it to work. So I'm going to select everything here. I'm going to go here. And if I just right click on it a little bit slow once, the modify does come up. That's another way to get at it. And I want to lock my dimensions, and I want to change this one to 0.375. And I'm going to hit OK. Yeah, see, that's what I was having problems with. Let me do it one more time, and I'm going to do it the other way. Select and modify through here. Now all of them come up. 0.375, lock, and OK. Yeah, see, this was my frustration. I don't know why it doesn't work. Right? Is that what you mean? On the corner. Oh, here? Oh, I know you can do that. I was just trying to do the modify so that if I changed one of those dimensions, it would scale down for me. But I know what you're saying. Yeah. And that's how I was playing with it when I was at home. I'm like, why isn't it always working? It's like inconsistent. So it worked once for me. And now it's like doing that same thing. So, okay. Yeah, you're right. I can go like this, and I can go like this, and I can kind of get it closer, right? And I can zoom in. But to me, that's not efficient, is it? Don't you feel like that's like kind of, then you do your dimensions. Right. Oh, this one's not, it's not gonna. I know. I know, because we've constrained it, right? That's how I feel too. I'm there with you. that guy on the bottom. And then I don't know how many times I read this. It was very frustrating to me. The 1 inch, now it does that bottom one, which is irritating. 1 inch, okay. And now I've got my 12 degrees up there, and the one that I want, I know, I don't like this. Here, here, and if I put it here right now, it's gonna do it. It's gonna put it as a radius, and if I put it up here, it won't do it. This was exactly what I was struggling with, and that's where I was like, okay, if I draw it close, then I'm okay. So let me go like this again. Let's delete it. Start the center line. And maybe I feel like the inconsistency of this is just the software. I don't know why. If it's on my laptop, because I don't know. It really like very much irritates me. Do any of you have issues with it being wonky sometimes too? Like you like, I know I did that right the first time, and then it doesn't do it, and then I don't know. Okay, now I'm closer to the numbers, so it probably will work. So if I do 0.375 now, yep. And then if I do my 12 now, and then I can add in, and it's like I have to do them in a certain order. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now it works. Yep, now it took it away. And I can do this as 1 inch. Hopefully that's still 12. Yeah, it is. Okay, so there it is. I'm gonna check over here. Oh, it doesn't give me that option. That's okay. I think I can hit the okay right now because I'm in that sketching hole. Okay, so I've got it. Now they want me to place this. Okay, they want me to place this. And to place it, I am going to go in here. It says no items. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the center line because I want it to be coaxial to that center line. Okay, so I'm going to click that. And now you'll notice that it has kind of, it's like floating in the middle there. So I'm going to hit Control, and then I'm going to select that face right there, and it puts it on that face. And you can kind of see that it jumped there. And this is where, if we go back to looking at the hidden line view, I can see my hole is in there. Okay. And then if I go back to my shading with edges, I can see it's in there as well. Okay. Now, if I needed to flip it, I could flip it at this point, but the placement looks good. Okay. So that's putting that tapered hole in using that sketcher function. And again, that whole business, getting it around where it needs to be, is a little frustrating to me, but I'll get used to it, I guess. I don't know. It's inconsistent. That's what I don't like. And I can hit OK. All right. So that takes me to the end then of this first tutorial. Now, something I want you to know is ProE, and you maybe noticed this, if you look in your directory, your working directory, it has all of these saved versions of the actual file itself. And at some point when we save, you're like, I don't need all those old versions, right? Because everything is fine. So they're nice there to have them just in case, right? So that you can go back and if you mess something up, you can go back, to where you want to be. So right now I'm going to hit a save, and it's going to save my most current version here. And then what you can do is you can go into File, Manage File, and you can delete all the old versions. Okay, so that you just have the one file that's there. And that's a good idea to do, like when you've kind of confirmed that this is it. Okay. I don't know if SolidWorks does that. Does it maybe keep one copy, kind of like what AutoCAD does? It doesn't keep all the versions. So if you're noticing that your hard drive or your jump drive is filling up fast, it might be because of all those old versions out there. So make sure that you kind of take care of that. And that is it. Okay. So that's the first tutorial that we have in there. So that's of the step shaft. If we look in our book, there is another tutorial. There's 2 tutorials that you can finish up before we start our actual drawings. And the next one is to do this plate right here, okay, or this back cup right here of this assembly. And that's going to be starting on page 138, okay? Now they do a bunch of calculations up here. You don't have to do that. You can jump right in using those dimensions unless you're really curious and you want to make sure that you understand how they did that, but it's really just calculating the angles and the profile and stuff like that. And then it's running through what we really just did, and adding in keyways, some rounds, some chamfers, a through hole, and then the problems start. So what I want you to do is you have 2 tutorials to do, the one that I just demonstrated for you, and then this next one on the cup of that assembly that we just looked at the pages for. I want you to kind of go further and then do these guys as well. And I'm not going to put the drawings out there until like tomorrow or Wednesday. See, I want to give you a chance to do those because otherwise you might not do them right away. They are going to be graded, okay, so they're part of what you have to do, but I'm going to put the tutorial assignment out there first before I give you the drawings. If you're like, get through them and you're like, oh, I want to keep going, Kelly, what are the drawings that you're going to assign? Just contact me and I'll let you know, okay? I've got them figured out. I'm just kind of piecemealing it for you guys so that you don't jump too far ahead. Okay, that's it. That's all that I have for today. So if you have any questions between now and we'll meet tomorrow again, let me know. Just email or text me. Okay, that's all that I have. Have a great day.